ASMR. Tiki ASMR. And today I wanted to do a Premier League ramble because the season just started today and tomorrow is the first day with lots of games, so Premier League football, or if you're in America, soccer. I'll call it football for this video though. But I am an American that recently chose my team in the Premier League, that I wanted to just make that my team, and I did that before last season and chose Crystal Palace. So it was actually a really good season for Crystal Palace. It's funny because I made the announcement official on my Twitter X account, and essentially did that so there's no going back. That's my team moving forward, and it kind of blew up recently, and everyone's like, "You bring good luck, you bring good vibes," because they won the FA Cup last season and then just won another trophy very recently. So I've seen not one but two trophies for Crystal Palace already, and there's been Crystal Palace fans that have waited decades to have a season this good. So you guys know I like to bring the good vibes and the good energy, and I think that helped out the team a little bit last year. So I just wanted to do some Premier League ramble, talk about what I'm excited for, which teams I think might be good, maybe do some predictions, and then talk about my team a little bit. So I do also have some gum that I'll put in for the ramble, so we can do some gum chewing and some rambling about the Premier League and call that a day. But I'm excited for it, and I know there's a lot of people around the world that watch the Premier League as well, so I think this should be a fun video. So, the first question that I always get when it comes to Premier League stuff, since I don't live in England, I live in the United States. A lot of people always wonder, how did you pick the team? How did you decide which team to cheer for? And in the United States, I'd say the common teams that people cheer for are Manchester United, Arsenal, and Liverpool, so the big teams. And then you'll see some Chelsea fans and some Manchester City fans. Some Tottenham fans. I think those are the main ones, the bigger teams. But when wanting to pick my team for who I wanted to cheer for, I wanted to pick a team that wasn't one of the big market teams. And I was drawn towards Crystal Palace for a couple of different reasons. So the first reason that I picked Crystal Palace was I really like their color scheme of the red and blue, and it tied in really closely with my alma mater, the University of Kansas Jayhawks. They're crimson and blue, so the color scheme just lined up really well for that. And I also liked that they had 2 American players on their team last year, so I already knew a couple of their players. Chris Richards is one of their defenders, and he is one of the best players for the United States national team. And then they also had Matt Turner, who was a backup goalie for them, but is potentially going to be the starting goalie for the United States in this upcoming World Cup. So they also had 2 American players, which I thought would be fun because there's not too many. I think there's probably only like maybe like 8 or 9 American players in the Premier League, if that. There might actually be less this season, but there's really not that many in the Premier League. So that was another reason. And then the last reason was I just wanted a team that was kind of in the mid-table range. So, not a team that has historically finished like top 3, 4, 5 in the EPL. But also not a team that like could potentially demote down into the Championship League, which is their second league. So I wanted a team that was like kind of safely in the middle, that would like push for, the top half or the top third of the league, but isn't one of those like really popular teams in the United States. I wanted a team that felt like my own, and I wanted a team that, when I picked them last year, no one could say I'm a bandwagon fan. And now it's funny because now that they've won the FA Cup and they just won 2 trophies in the last 3 months, all the Crystal Palace fans from England, or that have been fans for much longer than me, they joke around with me and they say, oh, you just picked them because blah blah blah, or it's like you're a glory finder, you're picking the team because they're doing well now. But I got in just in time at the beginning of last year, before the season even started. So Crystal Palace is my team, and I'd say in a very short amount of time I've become like a diehard fan. I've watched, I think, of the 45 to 50 games last year that they played that are like televised for me, able to watch, I'd say I watched probably around 35 of them. So there's definitely some times where on the weekends I might be doing something else, but if I'm free, and most of the games are really early here, so it's like a nice incentive to wake up early. I watched a good chunk of their games, and I'd say probably around 80 to 90% of their games I watched them live. So yeah, that's how I picked Crystal Palace, was primarily like the color scheme, the United States national team connection, and then the fact that they're historically more of a mid-table team, not like super high, super good in terms of like top finishes, but never a team that's like I'm worried that they might demote. So yeah, that is that's my team right there, Crystal Palace Football Club. So, as I mentioned, the season technically started today because Liverpool played Bournemouth, and it was a pretty fun game to watch. Liverpool ended up winning 4-2, and I think that was expected. I think most people expected them to win. They actually went up 2-0 early on, and then the game got really really excited because Semenyo for Bournemouth scored back-to-back goals to make it 2-2, 2-2, 2-2, 2-2, 2-2, 2-2, 2-2. And then Liverpool had a really nice third goal late to put them up 3-2. I think Chiesa scored it. Chiesa, I want to say that's his name. But he had a really nice goal where Bournemouth saved it. The goalie for Bournemouth saved it, and then a defender cleared it out a little bit, but not all the way. And then Chiesa had a really nice volley into the right-hand side of the net. So, it was a really nice goal. They go up 3-2. And then Mo Salah did some Mo Salah things and scored in the 94th minute. So, in extra time, he scored the fourth goal for Liverpool, and kind of a garbage time goal, but it was a nice finish. I play fantasy Premier League as well with some of my co-workers and friends, and I don't have Mo Salah on my team. I have Erling Haaland for Manchester City and some other players, but I was happy that he wasn't playing as well, because in fantasy you get points for like scoring and assisting and defensive contributions and other stuff, but he was having a pretty poor game in terms of fantasy points, and a lot of people have Mo Salah on their team and captain him, so the captain in Premier League gets double points. However, you pick one captain each week. You pick one captain each week, and his points are doubled. So, Mo Salah having an off game for the first time in a long time was actually really promising, because he's not on my team, but he ended up scoring at the end. So, that's how it goes, but the rest of the games take place tomorrow and Sunday. So, there's a lot of pretty fun matchups in this first week. And for me, the early game is at 5:30 a.m. my local time, so I don't think I'll be getting up for that one. But all of the other games I should be able to tune in for and kind of follow along, so I think that'll be a fun weekend of watching lots of football. But I guess we can do some of my predictions and thoughts for this season in the Premier League. So, the general structure of the Premier League is that of the teams in the table, there's 3 teams that will demote. So each year there's 3 teams that will promote from the League 2 Championship. And there's 3 teams that will demote from the Premier League. And as of late, it's been very much like 3 up, 3 down of teams that promoted the season before demote right back down. But I am hoping and I am thinking that there might be a team or 2 that could demote that were in the Premier League last season. So the 2 teams that I think have a chance to demote and not do very well this year, one is Wolves and the other is West Ham. So, if anyone's watching and you're a Wolves fan or a West Ham fan, let me know what your thoughts are. But there's actually some pretty good teams that are promoting this year. I think Leeds is pretty good, and I think Burnley is pretty good. And I think the third team is Sunderland, who I think will probably demote back down, but I think Burnley has a chance to stay up if they're playing well. I think Burnley has a chance to stay up, and I think Leeds has a chance to cause some chaos. I feel like Burnley has the best chance because they have they had a really good defense last year, and they just brought in a new goalie that's supposed to be pretty good. So I think defensively they could hang with a lot of the Premier League teams. And then offensively, might be a little bit more of a struggle, but they have an interesting mixture of players that, if things go well, I think there's a chance for them to stay up. So, I'll be cheering for Burnley this year. And I don't want to say hate watching, that seems aggressive, but I'll likely be cheering against Wolves and West Ham, because I'd like to see someone else stay up in the Premier League rather than going 3 up, 3 down, 3 up, 3 down every single year. I think it's better for the league and better for the sport if someone else demotes. And Wolves lost Cunha, who was their really good striker last season. He went to Manchester United. And then they also lost their best defender, who went to Manchester City. So Manchester's just like ripping their team apart a little bit, but I think Wolves is in danger of being one of those bottom teams. And there's 20 teams, so it's the teams that finish 18th, 19th, and 20th are the teams that will demote. And I think Wolves will definitely be in the bottom 5. It's just a matter of whether or not Burnley or Leeds or Sunderland can play better than them to force them into the bottom 3. So that's kind of the bottom of the bracket, or the table. And then for the top, I feel like a lot of people are set on Liverpool winning the league again. They just won it last year and have, on paper, probably the best team on paper. Because they bring back Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk and Gakpo and a lot of their players. They brought back a lot of people. But they also went out and paid Wirtz, who is a German midfielder that I really like. When watching the World Cup, I'm usually cheering for the United States if they're in it. But the other teams that I've always been drawn towards or like is Germany, Deutschland, because I did a study abroad there and my dad was actually born in Heidelberg, Germany. So I'll cheer for Germany. And then the other team is the Netherlands. The Netherlands. So those are kind of the 3 teams that I generally cheer for in terms of like international competition. But Wirtz is a midfielder that I really like, and they brought him in. And then they also brought in Ekitike, who's a pretty good forward, and he actually scored the first goal of the game and the first goal of the season for Liverpool. So, and then they brought in a couple good defenders too, so they really stacked their roster pretty good. So, I'd like to say that I I see someone else topping them because I do really like Arsenal. I think Arsenal has a very good defense, and they brought in Gyökeres, who's one of the best forwards in the world right now, and was probably the best goal scorer just in Europe as a continent. He was probably the best European goal scorer last year. So I do like Arsenal. And they have Saka in the midfield. So Arsenal, I think, could push them for sure, but I think I'm going to go with Liverpool still to win the league and go back to back. Manchester City, I have more of their fantasy players because they have some pretty good matchups early on. And I do like Erling Haaland a lot. But I feel like, on paper at least, their team is a slight step down from Liverpool and Arsenal. So I think I'd have Liverpool 1 and Arsenal 2 and then Manchester City 3. I think that's what my top 3 would be. As for Crystal Palace, my team, I think we'll finish in the probably the 6 to 10 range. And if I had to bet money on which spot, I would say 7th or 8th is probably most likely in my opinion. But our team has a lot of continuity, so if we hold on to our players and don't send them somewhere else for money, because there's lots of rumors about hey, Eberechi Eze, he might go here, he might go there. Oh, Adam Wharton rumored to this team. Mark Gahey rumored to this team. A lot of our players get rumors around them. But I hope we keep all of our guys for at least this season, because I think the continuity will help us, and I really like our coach. Oliver Glasner is a really good coach, and they just had the best season in a long time last year, so if anything, I want them to sign and bring in a couple more players rather than let players leave. But I think they'll finish 7th or 8th in the Premier League. And last year they finished 12th. So out of the 20 teams, they finished 12th, which is roughly where they end up every season. It feels like every season they're 10th, 11th, 12th, 9th, 11th, 10th. Just in that range. But I think this has the chance to be a really special season where they finish a little bit higher in that 6, 7, 8 range. So maybe a little bit optimistic, but I really like the pieces that we have. I'm a big fan of Chris Richards, who's the American defender. I really like Mateta, who is the striker from France, and he's huge, but he seems like such a nice, funny, genuine guy off the field too. I also like Daniel Munoz. He's a wing back, right back, but he actually gets up the field and does all sorts of running up and down the field and creating lots of chances. He actually gets a lot of assists and a lot of goals for a defender, and he's on my fantasy team as well, so I do like him a lot. And then of course I like the goalie as well, Dean Henderson. I think he's a really good goalie and has a chance to be on the English national team. I don't think he'll start because I think Pickford is a pretty good goalie for England still. He's the goalie for Everton, but I think Dean Henderson could be rostered at least at the upcoming World Cup for England as the backup goalie or the third goalie. I think they usually bring 3 goalies, but I think he could be on that team, and he does a really good job for Crystal Palace. like him a lot on penalty kicks because, usually when it's penalty kicks, like, you never really expect the goalies to, like, save them or, maybe out of if they're in a shootout and there's 5 kicks, maybe they save 1, maybe they save 2, but Dean Henderson has been really good on saving penalty kicks, so I feel really confident with him in net, so. But Crystal Palace has a really tough first game. They play at Chelsea on Sunday. And Chelsea's pretty good, like usual. They have a giant roster of pretty good players. And they brought in a decent amount of players as well. But Crystal Palace can win any game they play in. They just beat Liverpool, who, as I mentioned, is probably my favorite to win the league. They just beat Liverpool. And then in the FA Cup final, they beat Manchester City as well. So those are 2 of the top 3 teams in the league. And Crystal Palace beat both of them the last time that they played. So they can definitely play with the best teams in the league. And I think the key this year will be getting off to a better start because last year, I'd say through the first 8 weeks, they didn't play very well. I think they were trying to finalize the roster, and there was a couple people that were out injured. So they were down in that 15, 16, 17, 18 kind of range where it's like, my fiance was like, are they gonna demote? Your team's not very good. But the second half of the season, they were probably a top 6 or 7 team in the entire Premier League. So if they keep playing like that, I think they'll be in a really good spot. So I'm hoping they don't get off to such a slow start this year. But if you're watching this and you're still tuning in on this video, please let me know if you watch the Premier League or if you watch other football leagues. Let me know which team you cheer for, whether that's international or whether that's a club team. Let me know who you cheer for. And I think it'll be fun to banter back and forth a little bit. Because I like talking sports a lot, and I'm really happy that I started following Crystal Palace a lot closer last season because it's it's a really fun league and a really fun group of players that get pulled in from all over the world. Like, all of the best players, for the most part, come to either the Premier League or they go to Spain or Italy or Germany. Those kind of seem like the bigger leagues to me, at least, is England, Spain, Germany, and Italy. I think it's kind of those 4 leagues. At least from an American perspective, that's how I view those top leagues. And I've never really been into the MLS, Major League Soccer in the United States that much, just because I feel like the product is not very good. It seems like a much weaker brand of football. So technically, I'm a Colorado Rapids fan, but I'm way more into Crystal Palace than I have ever been into the Colorado Rapids. So I'm not a huge MLS fan. I feel like the MLS is more so for players when they get into their late 30s and 40s, but want to go live in Miami or New York or somewhere in the United States. If they just want to spend a couple years there. There's been a lot of players that used to be really good and then go to the MLS when they're older and they're still decent players, but they're definitely not in their prime That's why Leo Messi can like go there and be insanely good still. I don't know how old he is, but he's got to be getting up there. So, but yeah, so that's just a little Premier League ramble about the team that I cheer for, Crystal Palace, and just some predictions about the top and bottom of the Premier League table of who I think could do really well or win the league and who could demote. And then some information about, just other things as I rambled along. So I'll be watching games on Saturday and Sunday. And then if people like this, if they like hearing me ramble about, the Premier League and sports stuff in general, I can always do like a recap each week of, the games and the goal scorers and my thoughts in general. But I think that's going to do it for this one. So comment down below if you have a team that you cheer for or if you're excited for this league to start.